All right, so get this. Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan.
Whoa, wait, really?
Yeah. In this new movie, A Complete Unknown. Have you seen the trailer?
Yeah, I just saw it this morning, actually.
So for anyone listening who maybe just knows like the hits, could you set the scene a little? What makes Dylan the guy in folk music back then?
Okay, so picture it, 1965, folk music is everywhere, right? It's the sound of protest, raw emotion, a whole generation finding its voice. And Dylan, he was that voice. His lyrics were like nothing else. Insightful, almost like you could see the future. And they really struck a chord with people, especially young people.
Yeah, totally. He was the real deal.
Exactly. He wasn't just singing songs. He was capturing a moment in time. And Newport Folk Festival, that wasn't just another gig. No way Newport was the place to be for folk musicians. It represented something pure.
Yeah.
You know, a dedication to the music, the stories, the acoustic sound.
It's funny you mentioned the acoustic sound because that's kind of ironic considering what happens.
Big time.
Big time. Speaking of the movie, though, this Wikipedia article is super focused on the cast, which makes sense. I mean, Timothée Chalamet.
Right, and Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez.
Yes. Okay, but before we get totally lost in Hollywood, let's talk about the movie's source material. It's based on a book called Dylan Goes Electric by Elijah Wald. So what does that book tell us about Dylan going electric that maybe we wouldn't know otherwise?
I think the biggest thing is the context. A lot of people hear about Dylan going electric and they think he just woke up one day and decided to plug in a guitar. But it's so much more than that.
Oh, for sure.
Dylan was absorbing influences left and right. Like, he was really interested in what was happening in rock and roll at the time, especially guys like Chuck Berry. He loved that raw energy, and you can hear it creeping into his music even before Newport.
So it wasn't just a random decision, it was more like a gradual evolution.
And you have to remember, this is a time of huge cultural change. Rock and roll was still seen as this dangerous, rebellious force.
Yeah, like a threat to the establishment.
Exactly. And to some folk, purists, it represented everything they were against. So when Dylan plugged in, it was like a slap in the face.
Which is so perfectly captured in the film with Pete Seeger, played by Edward Norton.
Oh man, talk about perfect casting. Seeger was this folk music icon, and he saw Dylan's shift as a betrayal. You know, a betrayal of everything folk music stood for.
Yeah, like he was selling out.
And in Wald's book, he talks about how Seeger was so furious backstage at Newport that he supposedly threatened to cut the power cords himself.
No way.
Oh yeah, he was not happy. And it wasn't just him, the audience was in on it too. Picture the scene you're at Newport. The sun is setting and you're surrounded by fellow folk enthusiasts.
Oh yeah, I can imagine it.
The air is thick with anticipation, and then Dylan takes the stage. But instead of his acoustic guitar, he's backed by a full band, electric guitars blazing.
Talk about a mood shift.
It was a true turning point. Some were ecstatic, energized by the new sound. Others felt deeply betrayed, like something sacred had been violated.
That wasn't just someone being rude. There was real anger and disappointment behind it.
Absolutely. Remember, for many folk, music represented a pure form of expression, a direct line to the soul. Amplifying it, electrifying it felt. For some, like tainting it, commercializing it.
Which is interesting because, in a way, Dylan was grappling with that very tension, the pull between artistic integrity and commercial success. He wanted to evolve to explore new sounds, but that desire came at a cost.
And that's where the title of the film, A Complete Unknown, becomes so incredibly apt. Think about it. Dylan had become a symbol, a spokesperson for a generation. But in that pursuit of authenticity, of staying true to his own artistic vision, he had to shed that skin, become an unknown quantity again.
It's like he was asking, do you accept me for the music or for the image? Even if it meant alienating some of his most devoted fans. Which takes us back to the film. We've got this incredible cast. Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez, Edward Norton as Pete Seeger. They're not just playing characters, they're representing entire perspectives on this pivotal moment.
And don't forget, Elle Fanning as Sylvie Rousseau, based on Suze Rotolo, was incredibly influential in Dylan's life during this era. She was an artist herself, deeply involved in the folk scene, and her perspective as depicted in the film adds another layer of complexity to the story.
It's like we're seeing this explosion of change from all angles. Dylan's internal struggle, the reactions of those closest to him, the shockwaves sent through the music world, and of course the audience trying to make sense of it all.
It's an ensemble drama, but at its core, it's about that singular decision, that electric jolt that reverberated through music history. And what's so fascinating is that even today, decades later, that debate about staying true to your roots versus embracing evolution, it's still raging.
Think about how music has evolved even since Dylan's time. We've seen countless artists cross genres, experiment with new sounds, sometimes to the delight of fans, sometimes not.
Take someone like Taylor Swift, for example.
Yeah.
She started in country music, but over time she's branched out into pop, folk, even alternative rock. And with each shift, she's faced both praise and criticism for straying from her roots. It's that same tension, that same question of artistic authenticity playing out in a different era.
It's that constant tightrope walk. Do you stick to the sound that made you famous, or do you follow your own creative compass even if it leads you into uncharted territory?
And it's a question with no easy answers. Every artist grapples with it in their own way. But what Dylan's journey shows us is that true artistry often requires taking risks, pushing boundaries, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way. A complete unknown seems poised to explore these very themes, not just recounting the events, but really getting into the headspace of a young artist grappling with these monumental decisions.
So to everyone listening, as you get ready to watch A Complete Unknown, here's a question to ponder. Knowing what we've discussed, the cultural context, Dylan's own internal journey, the shockwaves it sent through the music world, how will you interpret this pivotal moment? What does going electric mean to you?